As of Monday, people in Saskatchewan will no longer have to show proof of vaccination. That leaves just 2 COVID measures in place. Masking will be mandatory in indoor public spaces, and people will still be required to self-isolate if they test positive. But Premier Scott Moe intends to let those expire at the end of this month. Premier Scott Moe joins me from Regina. Premier, it's good to talk to you.
Good to talk to you as well, David.
You're moving quick on lifting a lot of these restrictions. I wonder how much of that was motivated by the protests and the blockades that we're seeing across the country. Did that play a role in your decision making?
I wouldn't say that the protests or the blockades themselves play a role in or any protest for that matter plays a large role in the decision making of this government or maybe even essentially any government. However, individuals that are contacting their MLAs and some of them, yes, may be in Ottawa in the protest or in other shows of people having their voice heard right here in Regina, Saskatchewan. Most certainly have reached out and contacted their MLAs and myself as well over the last number of days. And, we certainly listen to our constituents when they do that. That being said, each individual is responsible for their own actions. And, there are a number of folks in Ottawa and other places that do want to be heard and, quite frankly, do want to move on to live with COVID in their community. There's some others that have performed some actions that they need to be held accountable for as well.
But you've heard, I'm sure, the criticism of your decision to do this, and people say you're doing this based more on politics than based on science and good public health advice. I mean, what's your response to your critics on that?
I don't know, as we find our way through, this Omicron variant in Saskatchewan and across Canada, we're seeing, much of the public health advice start to shift to, asking questions around how we are going to live with COVID, given the situation that we're in. We see comments coming out around, vaccinations not being as effective at preventing transmission, however, very effective with preventing serious outcomes of Omicron COVID. But most certainly, we're seeing much of the public health advice that is, providing governments the information to find the pathways to learn how to put forward a plan on how we're ultimately going to live with COVID in the weeks and months ahead. We must remember we have tools available today that have not been available in previous waves. Vaccines are widely available, and we have higher vaccination rates than we've ever had. Rapid tests are widely available in Saskatchewan, and I think becoming widely available in other areas of Canada as well. And we have early intervention therapies such as Paxlovid that is available, as well as some other therapies that we just never had 6 months ago.
Yes, but if vaccines, as we have learned, are not as effective at stopping transmission, but though still highly effective if you get your third booster shot, but they are the key to avoiding severe outcomes, why lift vaccine passports? Because I've read some of the coverage coming out of your province, sir. People are saying, restaurant owners, saying, my customers liked knowing that everybody in here was vaccinated, and now that certainty is going away.
Certainly, we are going to have some different views. We are seeing through some of the Chamber of Commerce surveys that they have put out that the majority of our retail business, including restaurant owners, are looking for the vaccine passports to be lifted. Most certainly, the majority of the communication that our MLAs are getting from constituents, including business owners, as well as employees, not only in private business, but in publicly delivered healthcare, education, are also reaching out and saying, this has been 2 long years. We have tools available today that we did not have available a number of months ago. Let's utilize those tools to the best of our ability, and let's move forward living with this virus, as it appears to be less severe than, most certainly in Saskatchewan's case, than the Delta variant that we experienced last fall.
But what do you mean by that, sir? When you say we got to live with the virus, what does life look like in Saskatchewan? Because, if you move away from masking policies, and if you move away from vaccine passport policies, and you don't have the best vaccination numbers in the country, living with COVID, to me, sounds like a lot of people getting sick.
Actually, when you look at Canadian rates and Saskatchewan rates, we have some of the highest vaccination rates around the world. And so, what living with COVID looks like in Saskatchewan as we move forward is families and individuals waking up in the morning and doing their own personal risk assessment. Some may choose to wear a mask in that whatever particular environment they're heading into that day. Some may choose to do a rapid test on that particular day because of what the environment is that they're going to experience that particular day. Most certainly, and we will continue to make vaccines available to continue to push our vaccine rate along, as well as our booster dose percentage rate along. We have 80% of people in Saskatchewan are fully vaccinated. We're approaching 50% that have their booster doses. The lion's share of those booster doses have been delivered to our elderly populations, and so we've done quite well with respect to when you look at vaccination rates around the world here in Canada, and a credit to all Canadians. But we've also done well here in Saskatchewan.
You know, the Saskatchewan Medical Association has said that they have concerns about you moving as quickly on this when you announce your intentions to move, to lift restrictions, saying that you really aren't in a position to do this as a province. And Premier, I can remember not too long ago when you lifted some restrictions, and pretty soon you were shipping patients to Ontario hospitals for care. I mean, how worried are you that you could end up in a situation like that again?
Right, and that was when Saskatchewan was in the depths of our Delta wave that we had here in the province. That's precisely when we introduced the vaccine passport system and the masking again here in the province, and it worked. It pushed up our vaccination rate by in excess of 10%, up to about 80% or just slightly higher here in Saskatchewan. And it helped us find our way through the Delta wave, and has helped in many cases prepare us for the Omicron wave. But at the end of the day, the vaccine passport system in particular is a policy that has run its course in Saskatchewan and likely across much of the nation, as well as it has increased vaccination rates. And as we move forward through the next number of weeks, what we have put forward to the people of Saskatchewan in this case is what our environment is going to look like, put forward a plan so Saskatchewan people can have some certainty with respect to what's coming in the weeks ahead.
Okay, the protests continue here in Ottawa and at border crossings in places like Windsor, Ontario, and in Coutts, Alberta. You initially expressed support for the protest's stated goal of getting the vaccine mandate lifted for truckers. How do you feel about what these protests have become, and in particular what they're doing in terms of occupying the downtown of the capital city and blocking border crossings in Windsor and in Alberta?
Right. Well, as at the outset, there's the majority of the folks that are participating, whether it be in the protests in Ottawa, we've had some in our capital city of Regina, as well as other communities across the province. They are really having their voices heard. The majority of these folks are just tired, quite frankly, of the public health measures that are in place, and they're quite willing to move forward living with the risks that COVID may present and future variants potentially, including the Omicron variant, may present, as opposed to moving forward with continued public health restrictions in place. And that was the core of the original message that this convoy had brought. It was precipitated by the vaccine mandate on international transport drivers. They've had their voice heard, I think, in a big way. I see now that some of these protests have extended to slowing border traffic, and that's going to have some economic impact, and that's going to really ensure that governments like ours, as well as the federal government, do pay attention. And I would hope that the federal government would open up a conversation, maybe not even necessarily with the convoy itself, but with all Canadians as to what the next number of weeks and months look like with respect to, we have declining Omicron numbers across Canada, we have declining hospitalizations across Canada. What does charting our path through this actually look like for Canadians?
But Premier, it sounds like you're sympathetic to these protesters or supporting these protesters. I mean, should they be blocking, cross-border trade to the U.S.?
Well, it certainly is going to get everyone's attention when they do, and it isn't for me to judge ultimately whether they should or not. There's obviously laws in place that they may be liable for, and I understand that the federal government is looking at procuring some RCMP and police resources to make a move with respect to this. But the federal government, I would say, has another road that they could choose, and that is really to, as I say, engage with Canadians on what the next number of weeks and months look like. We're seeing declining numbers. We're seeing, Canada with a high vaccination rate relative to other countries. And so there is an opportunity here for the Canadian government to either open up that conversation on what a scale down of public health mandates or vaccine mandates looks like, or if they go the other route and actually increase those mandates, I fear that may actually increase the intensity of what we're seeing in not only the capital city, but have it spread to other areas across the nation as well. And so that would be problematic.
But other premiers have said they've been heard, it's time to go home. Stop the blockades, go home. Are you prepared to do that, or are you going to stay out of it?
Well, I'm going to stay out of telling them what to do. There's laws in place. They're ultimately, as I said to the protesters that arrived in Regina, if you're in contravention of those laws, the enforcement is going to happen, and you shouldn't expect anything less than that. I truly do believe there is another path for the federal government to take to engage all Canadians on a path through this. If they choose to, up the ante, I guess to say, and increase the vaccine mandates to interprovincial transport drivers, I fear that won't be received well.
Okay, Premier Moe, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.